All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything for Thursday, August 27th, here for the Linchpin Athletics private track. We get some good questions. I've already looked through them all, scratched down some notes to make sure that I don't get too far off track and go crazy. And I have to start. If you're listening to this via podcast, you won't be able to see it, but if you're watching the video on the Linchpin Athletics YouTube channel, you can. Rick H. from the private track, thank you for the shirt. Sent me this shirt. How cool is this? Edison Holsinger, House of Iron, the old school bodybuilder, nutritional aids, expert advice, Parsons, Kansas. Fantastic. I wear it with pride. It's cool. Thank you very much. And I look forward to shaking your hand and a lot of other people's hands when we can do that post-COVID, and we can actually have some meetups and say hello and have a workout in the park and drink some coffee or whatever it happens to be. Those will be good times. But let's dive in. Oh, Rick, I just saw you tuned in. Boom, there it is. I literally just thanked you for the shirt. All right, here we go. So we'll dive in. The most upvoted question or topic was from Robin Thomas. It had 35. It now has 37. In your time working as a CrossFit Games analyst and presenter, what is your all-time favorite moment in any of the games, regionals, or open announcements? Bonus points if it's one that we can't find on YouTube and wasn't in a behind the scenes. Great question. I thought when you asked that question, I gave it some good hard thought today. And my answer is going to be very unsatisfying for a lot of people because it's largely not a crazy highlight or a big clean or a come from behind win. A lot of my memories of the games or regionals coverage or the open coverage comes from stuff that maybe wasn't even on camera, quite frankly. It's such a huge production to put those things on. You see the athletes on the floor, you see those of us who happen to be on camera, but there's literally hundreds of people that you never see behind the scenes, working camera, editing in the trucks, doing lighting, running around like crazy to make everything happen. And the interactions with those people, the mad scramble, something's always on fire, and there's always some sort of emergency or something's not happening on time or this package didn't go through and we can't cut to here and the interview didn't happen. And so now you're on live broadcast with somebody in your ear telling you how nothing's going according to plan and we need to do this and improvise with this and whatever it happens to be. And your job or role on camera is to not let the audience at home know that a meltdown is occurring. To still be cool, calm, and collected, even though somebody may be screaming in your ear and you're not quite sure where you're going or how long you'll be here and where you have to talk and where you're going next and when the commercial break will be, and you have to make it seem like this was planned the whole time. This is seamless. We're all good. Everything's wonderful. And some of those, and if you do it right, the audience will never know that it happened. It will seem seamless. But it was a 5-alarm fire. And when that finally ends and the show went well and it closes down and the lights go off, there's a lot of camaraderie and pride in having done that job and done it well. And nobody will ever know what happened, and then there's laughing and joking about, I can't believe that this occurred. We almost lost it here. And did you see when that happened? And hey, you threw to so-and-so and they handled it great. And it's very stressful. I know it can probably at times look like a really fun job, and don't get me wrong, it has some fun. But it's a lot of my memories from the games and regionals and opens. They're very stressful times. It is a stressful occupation to do live work like that. So that's a lot of my memories. But again, there's pride, a tremendous amount of pride that comes from that. But then when I think back to particular events and whatnot, I've got a smattering, and they're in no particular order whatsoever. And And they're just things that I liked. They may not have even influenced the scoreboard at all. So Chris Spieler's a good friend, a legend in the sport, in the community, a good man. And him pushing the dog sled, basically using his cervical spine to push the dog sled across the competition floor, which I think it weighed like 700 times his body weight. That was cool. That was just really cool. Really cool. Also, when Samantha Briggs passed Brett Fikowski on the trail run at the ranch at the very end, even though she absolutely did not need to do it for the scoreboard at all, it didn't influence her place. She just did it just to pass Brett Fikowski. I just loved it. It made my day. It was. Competitors are just competitors. Briggs doesn't want to see anybody in front of her, period, end of story, especially on a run. She wants to own that domain. So that made a smile to my face. And I'm biased. I love Fikowski as well. He's a great dude. I'm a huge Samantha Briggs fan. She might be my all-time favorite CrossFit Games athlete in history. So, and when Fraser won the trail run at the games at the ranch, that was, that's not a huge, crazy moment that brings the crowd to their feet. It's not this massive clean and jerk or whatnot. It's just an individual crossing a finish line on a run. But the mere fact that Fraser won a long trail run, no barbell, no heavy weights, no nothing, and he took first place on it, I thought that was very cool and indicative of the training that he'd put in and how much he was just going to burn the place to the ground. So I very much enjoyed that. What else do we have? It's another run one. When Tia Claire Toomey and Christy Aramo had that sprint to the finish. This was in Madison. I can't remember exactly what the event was. There was a swim involved in there as well. But anyway, when they had that foot race at the end, I loved the foot race because both of them are such tremendous athletes, and to see two people emptying the tank, that's just the stuff that I like. I love it when people leave nothing on the field. I love it when they pour their hearts out, so I very much enjoyed that one as well. I loved seeing Cara Webb finally make her way onto the podium. It was a long time coming, and she deserved it. She's a great athlete. She's been around the sport forever and ever and ever, so that was very, very cool to see. And I liked the obstacle course a couple years ago out there in Madison. I thought it was a blast. Now I'm biased, not only because I helped design the obstacle course, but because I love obstacle courses. I think they're just fun and beautiful and functional, and it's like a playground for big kids. So getting to see that creation actually come to life, see the athletes do it, see the challenge, I thought it was fantastic. And just to see some folks get out there and crush it was super cool. So anyway, yeah, that would be my recap, Robin, of some of my best moments there. Let's see. Next one was from John Ware. John, what did you ask about? Oh, here we go. Great question. I love the phrasing. Here's what John has to say. How soon are you going to program in some of the tomfoolery that Hinshaw was talking about? Great question. So, for anyone who missed it, earlier this week I did an interview with Hinshaw. It lives on the Linchpin Athletic Instagram channel, and you can also go to the Linchpin Athletics YouTube channel, and I believe it's Linchpin Conversations number 97. It's about an hour long, so be warned, but it's just full of fantastic information. And Hinshaw is just a very sharp individual and just an aerobic capacity, conditioning, genius. And so, known for a very long time. And I like talking to people who have a tremendous amount of knowledge in their niche, because I always learn something, and you should never stop learning. So I had a great conversation with him. And John's question is, when are we going to start putting it in? And I'll try to answer this without having it take 20 minutes. So the answer is soon, or immediately, I should say, but it's not so much that I'm going to write in something. For example, okay, so you have to have listened to the conversation with Chris to really understand this backstory. But so this will be an oversimplification. If you haven't listened to it, I recommend you go listen to it. So, for example, we had a great conversation in which we dissected some of the sprint work that I did the other day, because we programmed 8 by 200 meter repeats, and I took about 3 minutes rest between each of my repeats, because the repeats would say 8 by 200 meter run, rest as needed. So I took 3 minutes rest between each, and each of my runs was about 36 or 37 seconds, and that was a good, fast, challenging pace, but not like an all-out max effort. And then on the last run, I decided to push it a little more, came in on the eighth one at 33 seconds, and that still wasn't a maximum effort deal, but I was working hard, don't get me wrong. And so, we had this great conversation, and so an 8 by 200 meter repeat will still get programmed as an 8 by 200 meter repeat, and it may still get programmed as rest as needed. But if and that's why education is so critical. That's why we do these Ask Me Anything. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we do the shows. Because what I want to do is have the Linchpin community become as smart as possible, so that when you truly understand all these different aspects, you can take the workout of the day and make it just what you need. So now looping back, let's say it's still an 8 by 200 meter repeat, rest as needed. Well, Chris said, okay, he looked at my workout and said, you did an 8 by 200 meter repeats, you ran each one in about, let's say, 36 to 37 seconds, you rested 3 minutes between each. And now in his mind as a coach, he says, we've got a couple things going on here that we can play with. We can play with the distance, which is, 200 meter repeats, you could do hundreds, you could do 300s, you could do 400s, whatever. That's one variable. The other variable is the time, the intensity, the speed at which you ran. Are you running those 200s in 30 seconds, 35 seconds, 40 seconds, 45 seconds, 50, whatever it is? And then the other element that you can track and control is your rest. And you should be tracking and controlling all three of those so that you have measurable, observable, and repeatable data. And that's on a basic understanding, right? And then if you start to dive into a little bit more, like we talked about in Linchpin Conversations 97 there with Hinshaw, and you start to have a baseline knowledge to assess yourself, then you can tweak an 8 by 200 meter rest as needed to be exactly what you need it to be without the need, because for example, if 10 people are doing that workout, each person might need an 8 by 200 meter repeat, but slightly different. And so Chris basically said, let's say you have the desire to run a 6-minute mile or a sub-6 mile, okay? Well, what you need to do to run a 6-minute mile is you need to hold a 45-second 200 over and over and over again, and if you do it, you'll cover a mile and a 6-minute mile. So his deal was, you've got speed, like, can you move fast enough to accomplish that goal? If your goal is a 6-minute mile. If the answer is no, you can't even run a single 200 in 45 seconds, well, you've got a speed problem. You need to get faster because you're not at your goal to be able to run that 6-minute mile. And so doing an 8 by 200 meter repeat workout for example, with long rest periods between each, such as 3 minutes, where you can get a good full recovery and then run fast to work on your speed on the next one, that is probably right where you need to be. And you'll stay there for a while, and you do hundreds and 400s and 800s and whatever. But with that idea of you need to get faster, and whether that takes 3, 6, 9, 12 months, till you eventually, like when he analyzed mine, he's like, okay, so you're running these in 36 or 37 seconds, and you said that it's not too bad, and you rested 3 minutes between each. He said, well, Pat, I don't think speed, let's say you're trying to run that 6-minute mile, he's like, I don't think speed is your problem. So I'm not concerned with you taking big periods of rest and trying to get faster. What I would have he's like, what I would have you do is I would actually want you to run slower. So now the next time 8x200 meter repeats come up, for me as an athlete, instead of trying to run them in 35 to 37 seconds, I actually want you to run them slower. I want you to run them in 45 seconds per 200 meter interval. But here's what we're going to do. Instead of allowing you 3 minutes rest between each, we're going to shorten that rest to only 45 seconds, which is a huge difference. And that rest will be you jogging 100 meters. And we'll see if you have the stamina, meaning that your recovery is sufficient. You can recover quick enough in a much shorter period of time. Your muscular stamina is good enough to keep doing that over and over again. Because you've got plenty of speed, but can you keep it up repeatedly to achieve that goal of a 6-minute mile? And they're two different things. And you would attack them and approach them in two different ways. And so now if speed's not the issue, we start cutting down the rest to improve the stamina and the recovery. And so what he wanted me to do is, like, next time this pops up for you, go to a track, 3, 2, 1, go. You run 200 meters around the track with the goal of doing it in 45 seconds. You cross the line, there's another hash, it's a 400 meter track. So then take 45 seconds to jog to the next 100 meter mark. When I jog in 45 seconds to that 100 meter mark, boom, I launched 200 meter dash number 2 with trying to just hold it at 45 seconds. I cross the line, I then jog 100 meters in precisely 45 seconds. Boom, I launch the next 200 and see if I can play that game and hold that for 8 intervals. And that would be a workout more focused on stamina and recovery than speed. But that's just what I need personally. So there's a great chance that somebody else doesn't necessarily need to work on their stamina yet because they don't have the speed part down. So that's why I could still program 8x200 meter repeats and put in there rest as needed. And that rest as needed will be maximized if the athlete tunes into these shows, these AMAs, these podcasts, and gets the knowledge, and therefore knows, okay, today's an 8x200 meter repeat. I know my goal for my mile. I know I'm not quite there yet for speed, so I need to learn to run quicker. So I'm going to take long rest periods, and mark them, and then get my time till I get my speed down. And eventually, when that isn't the case, that speed's not a factor, I'm still, when 8x200 meter repeats pops up, I'm going to rest as needed, but as needed for me now has shifted to something different because I'm going to focus on stamina and recovery on this particular day. So, yes, we're going to start implementing this stuff immediately, and my goal is to allow everybody to be able to implement this in whatever manner makes the most sense for them based upon where they are in their athletic journey. Because like I said, we've got 20 people showing up to a track day. Everybody's going to quote-unquote rest as needed, but it's going to be different for every single person's needs. And the only way that can be accomplished is by educating the individual user so that their training session is maximized. And that is exactly why we have conversations with interesting people. So that's the goal. It's a bit of an oversimplification, because there are other topics in there and whatnot, but that I would say is the overall deal that will have the greatest application to everybody watching here. And you could play that same game like they were saying with lifting. Let's say it was a 5x5 back squat. Well, is top end strength your issue, or are you pretty darn strong but your stamina is not good? So if top end strength is still something that you need to work on, well then you're going to want to take a nice long rest, 3 to 4 minutes between those 5x5 back squats to make sure that maximal loading is lifted for those. But if your maximal loading you think is pretty darn good and it's not holding you back and it's a stamina issue, then you might shorten that rest period between the 5x5 back squats to maybe 2 minutes, in which time during those 2 minutes you're going to be casually rowing or holding a set pace on the rower, which is certainly going to interfere with what you're doing with the back squats, and you will lift less loading. However, the focus on that day, quite intentionally, will be more from a stamina side than a top-end strength side. So everybody in the world will need to do a 5x5 back squat when that day is programmed. But then again, like I said, if you've got 30 people showing up to the gym to back squat, yep, they all need the back squat, and maybe the guy in your gym who's an absolute back squat monster, well, maybe he or she would benefit from more of a stamina-focused session. Whereas other individuals who still, compared to their peers or their age group or whatever it happens to be, still have plenty of room to go in getting maximally stronger, well, they're going to take that 3 to 4 minutes, and their focus is going to be lifting as heavy as they can for each of those sets. So again, everybody benefits from the 5x5 back squat, but it's these conversations and it's the education of the individual user, the education of the individual athlete, better understanding CrossFit methodology and why we do what we do, that allows them to have the best and most impactful session in the gym. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a rabbit hole there. And what's interesting is, I love learning. It's fantastic. And anybody who tells you that they have all the answers figured out, you should run in the other direction. There's always something to learn from anybody. I don't care. Period. End of story. And so what everyone out there as the user audience needs to do, and it's my job as the shepherd of the flock, if you will, is to keep people on track. Because it's also very easy to follow the shiny object or get lost in novelty for no reason. So, and it's just, whatever captures your attention that day. So, you might listen to Linchpin Conversations number 97 there with Chris. I think it's 97. I hope I'm saying the right number. And you're just all fired up. It was great information, which it was. Fantastic conversation. You're like, that's it? I'm running 2 to 3 times a week, and I'm going down the session, these rabbit holes, and because you just got all fired up about it. Well, everything has an opportunity cost. If you're going to pour more time and effort into something else, well, something else is going to be neglected. And most of us need to get better at everything. So again, we can get better at everything at the same time by working these principles into our training. And so if I was to go do a conversation with somebody whose whole world was Olympic lifting, most people would then, after the conversation, be like, that's it. They're so right. They're so right. So many great points in that conversation. I need to really dive more into my Olympic lifting. That's going to be my focus. Well, you're going to have to, that comes at an opportunity cost. Something else isn't going to get focused then. And then I do an interview with a world-famous gymnast. And what happens at the end of that? Everybody realizes how much they've been neglecting their body weight movements and how much room they have to improve their body weight movements. It's like, well, that needs to be the focus now. It's like, truth be told, most of us are regular people with jobs and kids and lives and responsibilities and 20 different things going on every day. Most of us need to improve everything. Most of us have plenty of room to improve in our running, our metabolic conditioning, our conditioning overall. Most of us have plenty of room to improve with our Olympic lifting, plenty of room to improve with our power lifts, plenty of room to improve with our gymnastics. And that's what we do every day. We do constantly varied functional moves at high intensity, GPP, general physical preparedness, and everything that we do focuses on not overemphasizing one or underemphasizing one, trying to lift every little thing at once. And that takes dedication, it takes commitment and focus, it takes working your weaknesses, embracing variance, scaling when you need, and not chasing the shiny object. And that's kind of my job as the shepherd of the flock here, to keep people to educate myself as best as possible to make sure we're doing what I believe to be the best and most efficient things, because I don't want to waste my time in the gym. Not at all. I want to get the most bang for my buck that I can and get back out to my life, my kids, my job, everything else. So, okay. So that was that. And then, whatever way that you do, getting back to the 8x200 meter repeats, if you do 3 minutes rest, if you do, what I'm going to do, a 100 meter jog in 45 seconds, whatever it is that you do, on your Beyond the Whiteboard app, you have a section there when you log your workout for the day that you can leave notes. Well, in that notes section, just write down what you did. And then you can easily track your progress, keep yourself on track, and you'll be good to go. So, and David Miller had a similar question that looped in. His question was about recovery, so I think I kind of looped the two in there. Let's see, David Miller's. Yes, okay. So I think we roped everything into there. Good to go. All right, continuing along. Next question that had the most upvotes was from Jesse Hutchings, I believe. 18. Jesse, where are you? Here we go. When you program something new, do you or someone else test it before you publish it to be on the whiteboard? 21 upvotes. Answer? Yes and no. It just depends. I've been doing this a really long time. Really long time. I've done, I don't even know how many workouts myself, and then as a professional analyst, all I did was watch, ingest, dissect, break down workouts, loadings, time domains, reps, how did it shake out, programming for the games, working stuff out for Masters online competition, team series, testing events, figuring out. So because of all that, that didn't happen quickly. Because of all those years and years and years of doing that stuff, the overwhelming majority of the time, if I piece something together or, scratch it out, I've got a really good idea as to how it's going to shake out. And the vast majority of time, it's exactly how it goes. So it's great. And if I'm off by something, it's usually off by a little. I thought something would take 5 minutes and it took 6. Something like that. So it's relatively good to go. And some things we've got so many repetitions and familiarity with them that like if I think of like the workout that we've done a couple times. The 3 rounds for time, 400 meter run, 3 rounds of Cindy. I had never done that workout when I programmed it, but having done so many workouts that include a 400 meter run that are 3 rounds in nature, having done so many variations of Cindy, I had an extremely accurate picture of what 3 rounds for time of a 400 meter run and 3 rounds of Cindy would feel like, what would be required to do it well, what would be a good time, what would be a great time, what would be an effective scale, etc., etc. So it largely just depends upon the workout also. But that's not always the case. I won't give it away, but I can tell you that there's a workout coming up on September 12th this year, 2020 obviously, and it's a couplet, and one element is a metabolic conditioning piece. One element is a weightlifting piece, so it's a beautiful couplet, and it is in a 10-minute window, and you do one thing and another thing, and then you do those things again, but they increase a little bit in their repetition range, and then they increase a little bit in their repetition range, and you're going to see how far you can make it in a 10-minute window. I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be as nasty as you want to make it. But I had in my mind, when I created that, the rough sketch of what I wanted it to be. I knew the movements that I wanted to do. I knew the loading that we needed to use that day. I knew the time domain, etc., etc. I knew whether we should or shouldn't go below parallel or overhead. And so I had all those elements, and I crafted this thing out I crafted it out in ascending order, and we had it, in a 10-minute window. But I wasn't exactly sure, based upon the ascending nature of the workout in the 10-minute window, how many reps the, you know, uh, beginner, intermediate, or advanced athlete would get just right off the bat, because it was a little unique and it was a little different. And so I sketched it out in my garage, laid it out how it needed to be laid out. And actually, it's funny, my wife Emily drove home during that, and she sees me out in the garage just doing weird things. And she's like, "What are you doing? Is this the workout today?" And I was like, panting. It's like, "No, this is for something that's happening in the future, but I just got to make sure it's going to shake out how I think it's going to shake out." And, hyperventilating, caught my breath, and tested what I needed to test from it. And then based upon that data, came in, polished, tweaked, and modified so that, I didn't want people to get in too much volume. I didn't want them to get in too little volume. And so made sure that it just hit that sweet spot. So again, it just largely depends upon the workout. And I will say I get a lot of, I don't know why my brain works this way, but I get a lot of workout inspiration while doing other workouts. I might be doing the workout of the day, and while I'm doing the workout of the day, in the middle of huffing and puffing and just trying to survive, just something will pop into my head of like, oh, imagine if we had something similar to this workout, but we changed this for this. Ooh, that would be, effective and terrible and beautiful and horrible all at the same time. And so I might mid-workout, run over to the dry erase board and scratch something real quick so I don't forget. Then I keep working out. If I get another thought during round 4, I run over to the board, scratch it down so I don't forget it. And I get a lot of inspiration also when I sleep. I don't know why. Just things will pop into my head as to combinations or loadings, or ooh, wouldn't this be a kind of an interesting way to play on this classic workout, et cetera, et cetera. And then I try to scratch those things down when I wake up or grab my phone or whatever it happens to be. So anyway, hopefully that answered your question there. So that was the one from Jesse. Now the next one is from Colin that had 10 upvotes at the time that I checked this out. Let's see. Colin, where are you? Did you have any other names in mind before you settled on Linchpin? I imagine it's quite tricky to name a gym. Yes, it is tricky, and I rolled around names for a really long time. I don't remember what other names I was considering were in strong contention, but when I finally settled on Linchpin, I just knew that was it. And I think I settled on it somehow. I think I used a synonym finder or a thesaurus online, and I put in words into that I thought were cool, whether it's critical, important, strong, fit, community, and it kicks out all these other words that mean something similar. And when I came across Linchpin, which, is not obviously a physical device that holds several things together, but, it had the greater context of a linchpin is the key element that allows something big and important to happen. And I just wow, I really like that. That's really cool. And on top of that, it's an actual physical object that is a simple and beautiful symbol. So it can have a logo as well, and it just worked really, really well. So I'm just happy and lucky that shook out that way. Okay, Megan B. Where are we? Okay. Oh, this has received more upvotes since I saw it a little while ago. It's up to 15 upvotes. What was the Wednesday night takeout and treat that the Sherwood household indulges in? You mentioned in your video about Nancy. All right, so recently, after whatever the workout of the day happens to be, I'll be sitting on the floor in my garage panting, and I do a little live Instagram video for the Linchpin Athletics private track Facebook group of just my quick thoughts and real talk right after whatever the workout of the day is. And yesterday was Nancy, so I was huffing and puffing and said how that went. But then I happened to mention that Wednesdays in the Sherwood household is when we have our little cheat and treat night and some takeout. It varies, but traditionally it's usually Thai food is what happens. So we'll have some Thai food takeout. We're lucky enough to have a really good Thai joint in our town. They know us by name on Wednesday nights. So we'll get some Thai food, and then usually there's some sort of a sweet treat that occurs at the end. Emily, I don't think she'll care that I say this. So her favorites, if she does not like fancy treats, the fancier it is, the less she likes it. It's just simple, blue collar, get it done. She likes just like white, plain sheet cake you'd get like from the bakery section of your grocery store, or like Costco, nothing fancy. Like that's a home run as far as she's concerned. Or just like sweet cream ice cream, potentially with the cake. For me, of course, I'm a fan of ice cream as well. Love mint chip. Some what am I thinking of? Cookies and cream. Anything with peanut butter cups is fantastic. But I also very much enjoy carrot cake. Love a good slice of carrot cake, so that could happen. What sucks, and I don't know what the deal is last night we had our treats and sheets, and this has happened the last couple of Wednesday nights. I eat pretty darn clean every waking moment of the week other than Wednesday evening. And my body, I don't know if it's getting older or what it is, but the sugar gets me, and every Wednesday night I sleep like absolute crap. Absolute crap. And it happened again last night. I slept terrible. I just feel hot, my body's processing all that stuff in there. And I'm having some serious thoughts about, is it worth it? I know it's delicious in the moment, but I hate knowing that one night a week I'm going to get garbage sleep. So, I don't know. Maybe I need to try a different cheat or do it earlier in the day. It beats me, but something is just getting me on Wednesday nights. So that's that. Okay, final question. We had one from Levi. Levi, where are you? You must be up higher. I scrolled down, didn't see it. Levi, here we go. Is there any single movement you would remove from programming? Something you do or something you've seen others program? Not that they are of no value, but I feel some movements you can get a similar or better stimulus from another movement. For example, I think Russian twists are an okay movement, but don't like them in a workout because I feel like they are hard to program and maintain the stimulus I'm looking for. Good question. Yes, most movements aren't bad, right? There are very few bad movements. Maybe we could think of some if that was the focus of what I was trying to concentrate on here. So there are just, I would say, some movements in general lend themselves better to being measurable, observable, and repeatable in a couplet or triplet, one of your classic workouts, in which the goal is to be able to express some sort of intensity relative to the individual. And there are some movements that don't lend themselves well to that sort of a protocol. But again, that's not to say that they don't have value. They just may be better placed in a warm-up, in a cool-down, in accessory work, etc., etc. You mentioned the Russian twists. Yes, agreed. I feel that would be a great movement for accessory work. And, we do something very similar when we do our, where's my mind blanking right now? The landmine twists. We're still getting in rotational gut work. We do it in our accessory work. But you don't see me program the landmine twists in, the workout of the day. It's a fine movement. It's a wonderful movement. If it wasn't, I wouldn't put it in the accessory work. But I just feel something like that plays better in the accessory work than it would in the workout of the day. Another one that I might kind of put into that category is a Turkish get-up. Turkish get-ups are great. I mean, a strength builder, coordination. You're going to improve your flexibility. I mean, I really like Turkish get-ups, and we put them into our warm-ups regularly, and I think they have wonderful value. But I don't think they work quite as well in a workout. You could put them, don't get me wrong, right? You could put them into a workout and make just a fine workout. You really could. But if you're asking me most of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time, would something like a Turkish get-up fit really well in a mixed modality CrossFit workout as the workout of the day? Most of the time, no. Most of the time, no. There is actually, I believe, a hero workout from CrossFit.com that it's all kettlebells, and it's got some Turkish get-ups in there, and it's an absolute bruiser. But there's a reason why there's one that I can think of and not a ton, because it's just, every now and then may be okay, but you wouldn't want that to be your regular serving, if that makes sense. There are some things that I do in my warm-up that I add in every now and then, just due to the bumps and bruises I've had from the military and motorcycles and things like that. I do some kettlebell windmills in my warm-up every now and then to help try to loosen up my terrible shoulders and hips from, breaking my pelvis and separating my AC joint. Somebody who doesn't have those issues going on, may not need to put them into their warm-up. But I don't put kettlebell windmills, even though I think they work well for me in a warm-up. I don't put them into the workout. So again, there are some movements that are solid movements, but they fit just better in certain areas. And we'll, oh wow, it's been 42 minutes. I love chatting with everybody. The questions are always so good here in the AMAs. And I will just end with this. So I just mentioned that I like to throw in some kettlebell windmills every now and then into my warm-ups, even if I don't write them in the workout of the day, because to the warm-up each day. The warm-up is a great general head-to-toe warm-up that will serve the broad population very well. And, we say on Thursdays and Sundays when they're rest days, if you read that text that we have in there, I kind of say that, you can follow the warm-up that I write every day for as long as you live. Enjoy. Be great. But if you know that you have something going on with your body, or you, after doing a whole bunch of the warm-ups, find a few that just hum for you, that just your sweet spot, you're absolutely authorized to embrace those a bit more regularly. Or if you know that you like to add in, like I do, because maybe you've got something going on with your shoulders or hips or whatnot, the kettlebell windmill every now and then, you absolutely should, right? Because each person has a different body, has a different life, has different bumps and bruises based upon whatever life is thrown their way. And so you always should allow yourself a little bit of creativity to do a bit of experimenting. And after you've got a good breadth of warm-ups and experience under your belt, if there's, like I said, a handful of things that just you find, for whatever reason, really do a great job opening your hips, really do a great job opening your shoulders, absolutely feel free to modify and put them in. You're always authorized to do that. So, okay, that's that. And as always, thanks everybody for the questions. Today's a rest day. I hope you take it. We all know that Ben over in France is not going to take it. Who's kidding who? But everybody else, I hope that you enjoy your rest day, and we will talk again.